Stumbled unaware on the keeper of my soul. In the brilliance of her aura, I could see the promises of deity. Like a soul, my soul, a flame, I saw her aura. The beauty of 1,000 lifetimes, all surpassed in that one moment.
413 years before the current era.
I once asked Amador about his plans for the palace. One of his greatest joys, it seemed to me as a young man, was the model of Mount Zacharias and the intricately carved palace he made over the course of his life. I looked at the many towers, the pyramid in the center, and the jutting fingers of rock that was all that remained of the original peak. Why do you not tear down these rocks? I pointed to the fingers. Would they not make great building material? His answer remained with me, in my heart, my entire life. Deity created Estolia for us, young Hezekiah, and it is up to us to find a purpose for everything within our nation. Once I chose to keep the mountain the way it was, I realized my great vision could only be built with those as support. If I didn't wish to work with what Deity gave me, I could never have made anything half as grand. The same will always be true for the nation of Estolia, for her people, and for her future. Hezekiah Obadiah, second son of Zacharian, Capítulo 2.
Rialto!
Rialto woke, blinking at the candle being held in the darkness of his room. Rubbing his eyes, he said,
"Who is it?"
Cornelius.
"What is it, uncle?"
It must be serious if his uncle was in his bedchamber in the middle of the night.
Anadora is in labor. We must attend the birth.
His uncle lit several additional candles, and the chamber grew quickly brighter. His uncle's actions were quick and jerky, fumbling in his haste. Rialto pushed away his bedclothes and climbed out of bed. He pulled on his robe of office and slipped on his sandals. As soon as he dressed, he picked up the candelabra and followed his uncle through the dimly lit palace corridors to the wing of the palace his brother inhabited. Rolando looked up when they entered the outer room where he waited. His face was ghostly white, and his hand trembled as he reached up and brushed away tears. It must be serious for Rolando to not be at his wife's side during the birth.
Yanira told me to wait out here until the two of you arrived. She fears for Anadora.
Rolando's voice broke when he said his wife's name. Rialto felt apprehension twisting in his gut. He didn't want to be king. He needed his brother's wife to live through the birth. Would Deity let them down? He followed his uncle and brother into the bedchamber. Anadora had the sheen of perspiration on her upper lip and brow. Yanira, the midwife, was on the bed next to her, exploring the shape of Anadora's distended abdomen. She glanced up at their entrance.
"Good, you are here."
She crawled off the bed and beckoned Rolando close, taking his arm and telling him,
"You must sit where I was sitting, and hold Anadora's hand so she will benefit from your strength and courage."
Yanira turned to Rialto and his uncle.
"Anadora must receive a blessing."
Cornelius nodded, as if the midwife telling him how to do his spiritual job was commonplace. The blessing was short, but powerful.
As keeper of the soul of Rolando Trides, descendant of the firstborn son of Zacharias, heir apparent to the role of sovereign and king of Estolia, yours is the most important calling, Anadora, to keep the soul of the king and bring forth the next heir to the throne of Estolia. Have faith, and Deity will watch over you, will grant you the strength to overcome your trials in this, the darkest hour of your life. You will be blessed to attend the birth of each of your grandchildren. Deity knows your heart, your faith, and your strength. Know that Deity will grant unto you a deeper and more complete love for your husband than that experienced by any other Estolian. Deity is pleased with your faith.
Rialto felt the prickling of his skin during the blessing. Every word uttered came into his mind before his uncle said it aloud. He knew he would receive spiritual guidance throughout his forthcoming tenure as keeper of the soul of Estolia, but it was never clearer than in this moment. The guidance Deity provided them was active and ever-present, even 10 generations after Estoliana and Zacharias. The flurry of activity surrounding Anadora caused his thoughts about Deity to scatter like leaves in a vigorous fall breeze. Every pain she felt, every straining effort to give birth to the future king was mirrored on his brother's face. Yanira started to bark orders and all 3 men scrambled to follow them. Rialto joined her near Anadora's feet. His heart started to race when he saw the baby begin to emerge. After Anadora gave one final mighty effort, the entire baby slipped out and into Yanira's arms. The sound of the baby squalling was sweet to his ears. He and his brother shared a look before Rolando turned back to the woman who kept his soul, and Yanira placed the bloody infant in Rialto's arms. The umbilical cord trailed back from the baby to Anadora. He looked down at the baby and swallowed against the emotions burgeoning in his chest. It was a boy. The future king. He felt the presence of the spirit affirming yet again that the promises of deity were still an active part of the lives of all Estolians. His attention turned from the child in his arms to Yanira. She was focused on Anadora, her brows puckered in a frown. He looked from her face to his brother's wife, and saw a small hand had appeared. He looked at the baby in his arms, taking in the two perfectly formed hands already securely attached. They even had little perfect oval fingernails. If the child in his arms wasn't missing a limb, then the limb he was seeing must belong to a second child. Twins. Anadora was delivering a second child. Once the child was born, he saw the undeniable proof that this second baby would be his own successor. Twin boys. Cornelius awkwardly took the second infant from Yanira before she focused on Anadora again. For a moment Rialto feared there was another child to come. But then he saw Yanira was dealing with the afterbirth, working to sever both boys from the single mass of tissue that had nurtured both while in the womb. Rialto saw the relief on his brothers' and uncles' faces once it was clear the birthing process was over. While Yanira settled her patient more comfortably, Rialto examined the baby in his arms. He was beautiful, living proof of the promises of deity. Once Yanira finished settling Anadora, she cleaned the baby, tying a strip of lace on one ankle. She caught his curious expression and clarified with a grin.
This is so we will know which child is the firstborn son of the king.
Rolando left Anadora's side to look in awe at his two sons. He then moved close to where Rialto stood, reaching out to caress one tiny foot.
Antiochus Tiberius, heir apparent to the throne of Estolia.
He said, a catch in his voice. Turning to the infant in their uncle's arms, he pronounced,
Tremaine Antimonius, future keeper of the soul of Estolia.
Cornelius added,
These brothers' rule will be harmonious, jealousy will be unknown to them, and they will never wish to be apart. Their love for each other will be their greatest legacy, an example for all future generations to follow.
I stumbled unaware on the keeper of my soul. In the brilliance of her aura, I could see the promises of deity.